Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and the Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. What are we doing this week? We're doing a story from issue 7 of Batman Family, published on the 24th of June 1976. As I probably said already, that's just days after Paul McCartney's 34th birthday. Peter has the job now of telling us about the cover.
This is a DC Giant. How do we know this? Because at the top it says, DC Batman Family Giants. 50 cents, number 7, October. Production code is 31655. Approved by the Comics Code Authority. Also have lovely headshots of Batgirl and Robin there. Down the left-hand side, we have actual figures of Batgirl and Robin. My goodness, they're just shoving them everywhere here. And a caption that says, the Dynamite duo battles Huntress and Sportsmaster in 13 points to a dead end. And indeed, underneath the Batman Family logo, we are atop an Aztec pyramid.
Gosh.
At the top of this pyramid, the figure of the Huntress, who we haven't seen in a while, and we haven't seen this version before. She is wearing kind of a leotard with tiger stripes on it, a cowl that has like a tiger stripe to it. She's wearing tiger striped boots and a long tiger striped cape.
Yes, she looks like she's cosplaying as Rod Stewart.
Yes, definitely. And she's casting a net over the figure of Robin, the teen wonder.
Who's Annette? I'm sure I used to work with someone in Abbey National who was called Annette.
Yes.
What's Annette got to do with this story?
Yes, well, she was cast in the role. Over Robin, the teen wonder, who is sword fighting with a figure who seems to be dressed in like biker gear. He's got a white crash helmet on, he's got a purple jacket on, green trousers, purple boots, and Robin's having his sword hit out of his hand by this guy. Oh my goodness. Fortunately, swinging in from the right is the figure of Batgirl, and she looks like she's going to deal some business because she's about to kick Huntress in the back. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a real sense of energy and vibrancy and simultaneous action. I like this.
Also in this issue, the Menace of Dr. Double X and the mystery of the broken Batman trophies. Because they need to pad out the Giant with some reprint stuff.
They do. Gosh. Dr. Double X fascinates me.
Yeah, me too. I love the character.
I'm going to describe Dr. Double X for our listeners.
He is a guy in kind of like a yellow costume with a red hood and red cape. He has an X on his chest. However, he can create a kind of like electric ghost duplicate of himself, like a doppelganger that can fly about and has powers. And this doppelganger has got two X's, a double X or double cross, if you will.
Interesting.
On his chest. And I've always found this character fascinating.
To my untrained eyes, listeners, the first time I looked at Dr. Double X, I thought, oh, wait a minute. He looks kind of like a cross between Starman and the Starman of 1951.
He does, yeah.
But with a moustache and not a star on his chest and a weird little chicken sort of like crest on the top of his napper. Very interesting. We'll have to find out if there's a pre- and post-crisis version of Dr. Double X.
There is.
Oh, good. Well, that's all right. Well, that's all right then. So jumping straight into the story and the opening splash image, it loosely kind of echoes the cover in a way. We'd better have Peter give us all the captions from the top of the page.
Only the Huntress and Sportsmaster could dream up such a diabolical duel for Batgirl and Robin, the teen wonder, in which the winner will die and the loser will live.
And we see, standing on the steps of, as Pete described in the cover, a sort of Aztec temple pyramid sort of thing, we see Robin and Batgirl dueling with swords, and they're being sort of waved at and coerced and encouraged by the Tigress, spoilers, by the Huntress and Sportsmaster. Interesting. Along the bottom, we get some captions that give us the credits for this issue.
Kurt Swan and Vince Coletta, artists. Previous guest of the podcast, Elliot S. Magan, writer, and Julius Schwartz, editor.
And we get a scroll caption, which gives us the title of this week's adventure.
13 points to a dead end.
Wonderful. It's been a long time, it seems to me, since we've had one of these opening splash images that kind of represents the story rather than just the story beginning.
Yeah.
Must be a Kurt Swan thing.
Could be.
Thanks for that enthusiastic agreement.
Could be is agreement. Yeah, could be. Okay, could be.
So, into the story properly. Over the page, we see a tall figure in a sort of purple robe answering a telephone call. We can see in the background a man with a very neat moustache holding Batman's costume. Yes, it's Bruce Wayne and Alfred. And Bruce Wayne is saying, "Dick, I've been trying to reach you for an hour. Where? You're in Washington? I wanted you to meet me there. Batgirl's apparently been abducted." And then we see, in a phone booth with the big tall monument from the first Tom Holland Spider-Man film in the background, we can see Dick Grayson is on the other end of this call, and he says,
"That's why I'm here, Bruce, and I think I can find her on my own. I know more about her than you do. We've worked together a lot. We're like a team, Batgirl and Robin." "Huh? I've got the what for her? Listen, she's got to be 7 years older."
We cut back to Bruce and Alfred, and Bruce waves Alfred away with the costume, saying, "Older women look pretty good when I was your age, kid. But I've got faith you can find her if you say you can. So, go to it, Robin." And then we see Dick Grayson running from the phone booth and jumping into what looks like a large copyright-free version of a Volkswagen van. And then we get a shot of Dick Grayson standing next to Robin, and they're holding a scroll, which reads,
"Dick Grayson is an extraordinary person with the agility and speed of a boy and the strength and cleverness of a man."
Wow, he has the proportionate agility and speed of a boy. That's amazing. That is...
We strive for that.
Oh man, I want a full back tattoo of that image there. That is just appalling. That means then that, right, hang on, that instead of being Robin, he should be called Boy Man.
Or Man Boy.
Man Boy. Yes. Why wasn't Man Boy ever invited to join the Legion of Superheroes? Question for another time. Anyway, the regular captioning begins.
"He is a teen wonder who has a problem on his mind."
And we see Dick driving along in this Volkswagen van, and then he narrates the next few pages. I shall fit in descriptions where I'm allowed. He thinks to himself,
"So far, I've only dug up the story of how Batgirl was lured into an elaborate trap that started with a radio broadcast."
And we see Barbara Gordon in her office, presumably, and there's a little radio on the counter behind her. We hear a voice coming from it saying, "9 people are being held hostage in the People's Bank. The 2 gunmen demand that Batgirl..." And that's enough to make her leap into action. Dick's narration resumes.
"I doubt that Congresswoman Barbara Gordon waited for the newsflash to end before she zoomed into the streets as Batgirl."
Yep, and we see her zooming off on her Batcycle, approaching the People's Bank. A few police cars outside, a few policemen ducking down behind the cars for cover.
Batgirl is used to taking liberties, so she took one when she used the cop car as a hot rod ramp. The world already knew she was capable of a spectacular entrance when it was appropriate, but it did a job of taking the would-be terrorists by surprise nonetheless. Not to mention the hostages, on whom her crashing debut had the same effect.
Yes, we see Batgirl at speed riding a cycle up the back of a police car, launching her through the window into the bank. The bad guys whirling around, she skids to a halt, knocks one of them over with the back wheel of the bike, and then she leaps off as Dick's narration returns.
"I learned from speaking to some of the still-stunned hostages that she backed up her initial surprise with one of her patented punk-paddling numbers."
Yes, we see Batgirl leaping into a mid-air forward somersault where she launches herself forward to kick one of the other bank robbers in the stomach, knocking him over.
But the robbers had their own act and put on a good show too. And as it turned out, the whole robbery and hostage routine was a big show.
And we see, as Batgirl kneels down to examine the robber she's just kicked in the stomach, we see the other robber, who she previously knocked off his feet, running up to cosh her from behind. But
Batgirl's was better.
And we see her quickly whipping round, using her bat rope, and sort of lassoing the wrist of the guy with the cosh, and obviously dealing with him because Dick's thoughts return.
That is, until she managed to tie the wrists of both gunmen together and let all the hostages out. At which time, the police scrambled inside, only to find that Batgirl and both would-be bank robbers were
gone. And we see, indeed, a bunch of police officers looking around the room. We see Batgirl's bike on the floor. There's no sign of Batgirl or the 2 robbers. One of the other officers says,
"But how? The bank is surrounded. They couldn't get out."
And one final cop says, "They've got to be here. Make a wall-to-wall, roof-to-basement search." Then we get a shot of Dick reversing his little VW van into an alleyway, looking out the window to see where he's going. It's very clever. He's thinking,
the police finally turned up something. A bank withdrawal slip for Batgirl. So the robbery was a setup to lure her into the bank where she could be snatched.
Gasp. In the next panel, you see that Dick has changed into his Robin costume, has fired a line, and is swinging away from the van, thinking,
What's worse, I've got a sneaking suspicion a Batgirl is being used to trap a Robin.
Wow. Over the page, we see Robin creeping along the rooftops and looking down at the front of the People's Bank. And he thinks,
That all happened yesterday, and the bank has been kept closed by the police. But a danger like that never stopped me before.
And we see him vaulting down, opening up the skylight into the bank and dropping through to the ground.
Now, if I were Batgirl and I had those two thugs tied up, I'd walk them toward the front door and... Hello? We're cooking already.
And he's noticed a very interesting sort of curtain arrangement, which has 3 pull cords hanging down. He steps closer to examine them, thinking,
There are 3 pull cords in this curtain, rather than the customary 2. Okay. Now we've got Batgirl standing where I am, whereupon a crook, even with his hands tied, got a good tug on this extra pull cord and... Yo!
There's some appalling glove continuity in this panel. Close-up of Robin's hand pulling the cord, and the glove is blue, and then the floor opens beneath him, and he yelled there because he's fallen into this trapdoor, and one of his gloves has turned yellow. Is this one of Boy Man's abilities to make his gloves change colour?
I think Man Boy's abilities are that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's not a dead fall. It seems to be there's a little slope from the slide down, and as he slides down this little slope, Robin is thinking,
I've fallen for a trap, just like Batgirl. Now I'm getting somewhere.
And then he lands in the next page in a big comfortable pile of cushions. Thank goodness for that. And no sooner has he landed in this colourful cushion combination, a crackling voice comes out of a speaker on the wall, saying,
Congratulations, Robin.
And Robin thinks to himself,
A woman's voice, on tape.
As anticipated, you found the method we used to kidnap Batgirl. We assure you there are no fingerprints in the room, and this tape is purposely distorted so that you can't analyze the voice print. What you can do, however, is take the airline ticket on the table and have a nice trip.
And then we see that there is an envelope with his name on it on a small table against the wall where the speaker is mounted, and he's opened the envelope up, and we see, indeed, there is an airline ticket, and it reads, 2790 Southwest Airlines, Hidalgo, Mexico. And then we have a slow dissolve to see a few people boarding a large aircraft. The stewardess is red hair, there's one guy going up the stairs, ginger hair in a brown suit, there's another guy with brown hair and a purple jacket and a brown backpack. There's another chap with swept back blonde hair, a big luxuriant moustache and dark glasses, and they're all making their way onto the plane as some captioning reads,
A guy doesn't very well step boldly onto a plane in a yellow cape and pointed shoes. So it is a disguised teen wonder that has buckled himself into place as the jet takes to the air.
And the camera seems to suggest, the point of view seems to suggest that it's either the luxuriant blonde moustache guy or the guy with dark hair and the purple jacket. We shall see.
And it is less than 2 hours before the young man with the blonde moustache walks forward toward the cockpit, and the seedy-looking fellow trudges off to a restroom.
Interesting, yes. So the seedy-looking fellow is the guy with brown hair and the purple jacket. He's walking to the back of the plane, but the blonde guy's moving forward. Top of the next page, a caption reads,
As soon as the blonde, clean-cut fellow slips quietly into the pilot's compartment, he whips off his glasses.
And he leans down towards the pilot and the co-pilot, and he says, See these specs, gentlemen? They go zip, like in zip gun. Now, you're going to make an unscheduled stop on a private airstrip 170 miles due east of Hidalgo, Mexico. While this is going on, we cut back to the seated area to see that the purple jacket and the brown hair that was being worn by that chap that boarded the plane have been dropped onto a chair by someone wearing green gloves, and a man with dark hair sitting next to this chap looks very startled. And we cut back to the cockpit where the blonde moustache man has pointed his sunglasses with intent at the pilot and co-pilot and says, Do your stuff, pal. To which the pilot says into his handset,
This is Southwest Flight 502. We've been hijacked. Repeat, we have been...
And then we see Robin sprinting up the cabin towards the cockpit, and he bursts into the room, grabs the blonde moustache guy from the back, knocking the gun out of his hand, as the pilot then concludes,
Rescued!
And miming for the benefit of our YouTube viewers, Robin, as he holds the hijacker, he says,
Talk, creep! Who sent you and where are you taking us?
The Huntress and Sportsmaster. They've got Batgirl and said they'd kill her if you didn't let me go. They were sure you'd be here.
You really believe they'd blow whatever they've got planned for us? For the likes of you?
And then Robin slaps, no other word for it, slaps the hijacker in the face, knocking him out. He says to the pilot and co-pilot,
He's all yours, guys. I'll swap him for a parachute.
Yes, Robin is going to jump out of the plane using this man to break his fall. That'd be amazing. There's a quick slow dissolve. We see the plane up in the sky, flying away into the distance, and a parachute being operated by a caped figure drifting downwards. And this caped figure is thinking,
Obviously, I'm expected to make a landing below. If I'm to reach my goal, I've got to play along.
You're going to like this bit, listeners. We turn the page, and at the very top, suits you, some captioning kicks in.
All right, now you know the Huntress and Sportsmaster are the masterminds behind this mess. Now, who on earth are they? First of all, they aren't the same Sportsmaster and Huntress we've seen operate on Earth 2.
And an asterisk takes us to a caption that reads,
In Brave and Bold, issue 62, October-November 1965. Editor, or indeed, a very old episode of this podcast.
That's right. God, I think summer of 2020 probably, or late 2020, I think we did that one. Anyway,
Yep.
the captioning resumes.
But they look the same, act the same, talk the same, might as well be the same.
And under all this captioning, there's a brilliant shot of the two Earths, separated by the little vibratory overlap, and we see the Sportsmaster standing over one and the Huntress standing over the other. Rest assured, this panel will make it to the socials.
Mm-hmm.
The next few panels are rippled as in flashback, and the captioning returns.
They are a pair of supercriminals who are married to each other. And a few weeks ago, there was some question as to how long they'd stay that way.
Yes, we see the two of them, Sportsmaster wearing the sort of crash helmet, motorbike helmet that Pete described from the cover. We see them standing at the top of some steps on what looks like an Aztec temple, and the Huntress is saying,
I said you're getting old, mister, and stupid.
Well, you're no spring chicken yourself, girl. I found this unknown valley, didn't I? I convinced the native tribe this land was cursed, didn't I?
And you buried the archaeologist who found the treasure too. But what good is it when neither of us can get to it in the 60-foot deep black hole in the pyramid? And with its unknown pitfalls, be sure we can come out alive.
And we see that they're standing on either side of an open hole in the floor. We can see that it opens and descends into absolute darkness.
The sharp-tongued Huntress is used to hard talking and hard living. In a life of crime, she has more often tracked down lawkeepers like animals than been hunted herself.
And we see her standing in the midst of a jewellery shop being robbed and some guards and police trapped underneath what looks like one of Sue Storm's force fields, to be honest. Captioning returns.
And her old man has made them both a fortune, stealing the greatest treasures on Earth, cleverly using sports gimmicks with the brazen style of a flashy quarterback or tennis hustler.
Yes, and we see the Sportsmaster dressed up, there's only way of putting it, dressed up in fishing gear but holding a tennis racket, and there's a giant model of a fish firing tennis balls out of its mouth, which are all bouncing off the heads of a bunch of men and women who look very unhappy and uncomfortable. Does that echo the events of Brave and the Bold 62? I can't remember.
Not specifically, because there's no flying putting scene in this one.
Of course.
Which is the highlight of that issue.
Yeah. The captioning returns.
But now, Mr. and Mrs. Menace have conned themselves into something of a pickle. Until...
Yes. Good headshots of Sportsmaster and Huntress here as he says, Hold it! I know just the ones who can go down there for us. And you, my henpecking Huntress, will help me get them to do it.
Meanwhile, in an isolated canyon in Mexico...
We see Batgirl with her wrists tied to a sort of support pillar, for want of a better way of putting it. We can see greenery behind her, her wrists above her head, and she's coming to from unconsciousness, and she's saying, Where am I? I was in the bank. Slid down a chute. Then a voice off camera says,
She's coming round.
We pull back to see that Sportsmaster and the Huntress are looking down at Batgirl. Sportsmaster's got changed into lacrosse gear by the looks of things. He's got his booty shorts on. They're standing looking down at Batgirl, who says, You! I've heard of you! Sportsmaster and the Huntress! Very good, Batgirl. See, we know your name too. So, you're responsible for my abduction? How long have I been here? And where is here? We get a nice big wide shot of where they are. Top of another Aztec-style pyramid. There's a raised sort of colonnade. 4 pillars holding this sort of overhead thing.
You've been here in a little-known ruin of an Aztec holy city for little over a day. We've kept you unconscious until now. And I, Batgirl, not my husband, am responsible for your being here.
Yes, and then we see that somehow Sportsmaster's gear seems to have changed again. The little red cap that he was wearing in the previous panel has gone. He's now wearing a purple sort of fencing jacket, And he has that mask over his face that he had the last time we saw him, or the last time we saw the Earth 2 version, that is. He pipes up here saying, "Yes, she set a sneaky snare for you as if you were wild game. You had no choice but to fall into her clutches." And then we see he's got a fencing sword in his hand, so the cross stick has vanished. He bends the sword, saying, "But cheer up! Your teammate Robin has just leaped into his prepared trap, making it possible for us to enter the phase of your captivity for which I am responsible. A gladiatorial match between the two most agile athletes in the crime-fighting business. A match to the death." And we pull back from the Aztec structure to see that Robin is disentangling himself from his parachute, which is wrapped around the branches of a tree, and he's standing in sight of the temple. I wonder if he'll notice what's going on. We turn the page. Oh, Batgirl speaks, as she says, "But why? What senseless purpose could it possibly serve if Robin or I were to destroy the other?" And as Robin moves through the grass, the Huntress replies,
"Does prey ever know why it's hunted down? Our purposes are our own, and besides that, you have it backward. It is the loser who will survive this contest. You'll both fight harder to save the other's life that way."
And we see Robin coming to the crest of the hill, looking down, and he thinks,
"An ancient Aztec Indian ruin. Just the sort of setting for Huntress and Sportsmaster."
But what he doesn't see is the tripwire under his right foot, which sets off a massive electric charge, and he can only yell, "Ah!" Next panel's interesting. Solid black, with a caption that reads,
"For who knows how long the Teen Wonder's world is black. And when the world finally lightens into other colours, he finds himself..."
Oh my goodness, what's going on here? As he rubs his head, Robin declares,
"In an arena next to a 4-horse chariot?"
Yep, that's what's going on. And then off camera, we hear the voice of the Sportsmaster as he says, "I've already told Batgirl the rules, Robin." Robin looks up,
"Huntress, Sportsmaster, I've heard of you."
and we see they're hovering above in what looks like a, oh gosh, I don't know. It's a plant pot this time, isn't it?
Almost, yes.
It's like a plant pot with a giant fuzzy light bulb in the base of it. Sportsmaster and Huntress are both in it, hovering above. Robin is standing next to his 4 white horses and a chariot, and we can see that Batgirl is in another chariot with 4 black horses. Robin again, of course, saying that he has heard of them, which prompts Sportsmaster to continue, "Which proves you're as clever as your teammate, but let's not waste time. The bands on your wrists are explosives," and we can see that Robin and Batgirl have both got metallic bands, I'm miming for the benefit of our YouTube viewers, around their right wrists. Sportsmaster continues, "Which I will detonate the moment one of you scores 13 points or more. However, only the winner will be blown up. For our amusement, you will be tested in ancient sports, like this chariot race, for which the winner will be awarded 6 points. Ready? Go." And there's a suggestion that Robin and Batgirl have looked at each other as this is about to start, but then the horses start to run, and Robin thinks,
"If only I knew why they're making us do this, what their game really is. But just in case I can't figure that out in time, I'd better make sure I reach 13 points and the lady doesn't, even if I have to cheat, by splintering her spokes with a trick I saw in an old movie."
and indeed, straight out of Ben-Hur, you see that Robin has manoeuvred his chariot so that the spike, the handy spike, on his wheel is moving into and breaking up the spokes on the closest wheel on Batgirl's chariot. And I have to wonder, have they done this deliberately so that Robin will win? Why doesn't Batgirl have spikes in her chariot? Anyway, first panel of the next page, we see the chariot going west. The horse is obviously experiencing some discomfort. Batgirl leaps from the disturbed chariot as Robin looks on thinking,
Knowing Batgirl, she'll land safely on her feet.
and a voice comes from above saying,
6 points for Robin.
In the next hour, the pair competes on the fields of archery and swordsmanship.
So we see Robin and Batgirl with bows and arrows, and they've already fired a few arrows into the targets. It looks like they've managed 3 each. The next one must be the clincher. And as Robin fires, Batgirl thinks, it's just a glimmer of a chance I'll be able to hit Robin's arrow away with my own. And a beautiful Kurt Swan inset panel shows that happening, as Babs thinks, right, my arrow bounced back to my target. And we see indeed that her arrow continues uninterrupted, strikes the target, and Huntress's voice yells,
6 points for Batgirl.
The rest of this little panel sequence is rounded out with them sword fighting, fencing with their blades, as a voice says,
You fence just stand still. 3 points for each of you.
gosh. Listeners, I was about to say how many points they had, but we don't have to, because we see in the next panel Robin and Batgirl running up the steps of the pyramid with Sportsmaster and Huntress looking down, Sportsmaster pointing to the top of the pyramid like I'm doing for the benefit of our YouTube viewers, and him saying, "You're both tied at 9 each, but you can't tie at the final event, which starts at the apex of this pyramid." And they're running up towards it. We flip the page, and at the top, we see them looking down into the hole that Huntress and Sportsmaster were stood next to earlier on. Sportsmaster's voice can be heard saying, "I placed a worthless bauble, a shiny red trinket at the bottom of this tunnel through the pyramid. The one who uses gymnastic skills to bring it back first has won and saved the other's life."
Without a word, for fear it will be overheard, the teen wonder and the flame-headed heroine plunge into the darkest night pit, and as Batgirl carefully counts seconds until reaching the floor 60 feet away...
This is interesting because Robin has dived head first while Batgirl's just sort of dropped feet first. We see that Robin is shining a torch in front of them, and he cries,
"Watch it, Batgirl! Look out! The walls! I saw them turn into ruts and razor-sharp blades!"
And indeed we see spikes sticking out the side of the wall as they plummet past them. Robin then says,
"Say something, will you?"
2, 1,000, 3, 1... Batgirl's counting, obviously. A caption then reads,
And just before they hit bottom...
"How can I talk, Robin? I'd lose count. And instead of inflating the airbag in time, we'd be splattered over the woodwork." As that's obviously something she's produced from her utility belt because it cushions their landing. And we see on the ground in front of them a very shiny red thing, which Robin notices.
Good point. Oh, there's the trinket.
Batgirl picks it up. They look at it closely. She says, "Is that it? It looks like a ruby kamei. There are museums that would pay a fortune for one of those things."
You mean this whole setup was to force us to...
"Stay cool, boy, and let's plan our next move."
Minutes later, a batarang comes flying from the apex of the pyramid to wrap its line around a nearby post. A batarang followed by a teen wonder.
And we see Robin standing. With the shimmering, glowing ruby kamei in his hand, he holds it high. We see the Sportsmaster, still holding the device to control the bracelets, looking down at him from the floating, upside-down plant pot. Or is it a teacup? I'm not sure. Listeners, you decide. And the Sportsmaster says, "Congratulations, Robin. Where's your friend?"
Batgirl's behind me, but not far.
"You won't be around to greet her, fella. Now, roll the rock down the pyramid and take your medicine."
So you can sell this worthless bauble and destroy the evidence? Dream on! You blow that wrist explosive and this rock goes back where it came from.
And at this point, the Huntress leaps forward towards Robin, saying,
"He knows. He figured out we can't get the kamei without their athletic skill. Now I'll end this harebrained scheme of yours the right way, you..."
But before the Huntress can reach Robin, Batgirl vaults into view, knocking her back, saying, "Don't call your husband names. With Robin around, his delicate ears can't take it." And as Batgirl knocks Huntress over, we see that in the next panel, Robin has hurled the ruby kamei up towards Sportsmaster, thinking,
"Can't say I appreciate Batgirl's sense of humour, but she's caused enough surprise for me to be able to pitch this rock at Sportsmaster's explosive gizmo."
And as the ruby kamei flies towards the Sportsmaster, a caption reads,
But at that, the Sportsmaster pulls up a tool of a sport appropriate to the surroundings. Jai Alai.
Yes, listeners, I've no idea what this means. Peter has no idea what it means, but it looks as though the Sportsmaster has pulled out a little sort of sweetie banana, as we call them over here. And he's tried to catch the ruby as it flies towards him, but he missed, and he says, "Drat, fell short." And then we cut back to Batgirl and the Huntress, who seems to be bouncing down the stairs of the temple, with Batgirl saying, "Looks like Robin can use my help, Huntress, so I'll have to stop playing with you for a moment." And then she leaps up and catches the falling ruby, saying, "Gotcha, my red beauty." And then she somersaults forward to land gracefully on both feet, and she throws the ruby back up towards Robin, saying, "Here, Robin, catch. These characters wanted to use our sports abilities against us. Does Monkey in the Middle qualify?" And as the weird upside-down coffee cup with a fuzzy yellow thing stuck in its bottom, piloted by Sportsmaster, flies forward, Robin catches the ruby, saying,
"Why not? These two sure qualify as monkeys. But I'm more interested in combining both sports and hunting against them. The way, say, a rodeo does. Get along, little doggy."
And he throws the ruby down onto the grass in front of the temple. Sportsmaster has piloted down the upside-down teacup, and Huntress has made it to the ground as well. They see it rolling forwards, and they both say at the same time, "The ruby!"
All the two villains can see now is the priceless red rock ambling across the grass. All they care about at this moment is that precious stone. All they feel is their greed. All they think about is triumph. And, Like an athlete falling on a loose football and a cheetah pouncing at its prey, they just don't make it.
And they just don't make it because Robin has lassoed Sportsmaster around the wrist, pulling him back, and Batgirl has lassoed the Huntress around the ankles, pulling her back before either of them can reach the ruby. Robin punches out Sportsmaster, saying,
"Not a bad day's work, wouldn't you say, lady?"
And then we see Batgirl further securing ropes around Huntress's wrists as well as her ankles as she kneels down to keep her from moving and says, "Won't look bad in the papers either. I wonder which of us will get top billing this time." There's a slow dissolve.
The morning of the next day, in a penthouse high over the city of Gotham.
Yes, and a sky which is a funny orange colour.
70s pollution for you.
Maybe the effects of the crisis are starting to be felt in 1976 at this point. And we hear a very cultured voice saying,
"Master Bruce, have you seen the morning paper?"
"Yes, Alfred, I've seen it."
"Surely then you're very proud of young Master Dick and his friend Batgirl. Their latest exploit was well documented."
Proud, I suppose. And we see Bruce again in his purple silk robe with a nice cravat going on as well. He's been served some tea or coffee by Alfred on a tray. Alfred is bearing a copy of the Gotham Gazette. Alfred goes on to say,
"You suppose, sir? Certainly you're impressed with a young man and woman who hold their own and ultimately triumph against vermin such as this Sportsmaster and Huntress."
And we see the headline reads, "Robin, Batgirl," there's no and, just a comma, "apprehend international criminals in spectacular reversal." And we see Robin and Batgirl looking on a photograph as a cop walks away with Huntress and Sportsmaster. Bruce takes a sip of his coffee, saying, "I brought that young man up as if he were my own son, Alfred. I was impressed with Dick's intelligence and skill at an early age, with his eagerness to learn. I was impressed enough to make him my partner, enough to let him strike out on his own." And as he sits back to read the paper with his feet up on his desk, he concludes, "I'm not impressed by the amazing accomplishments of Batgirl or Robin anymore. I've come to expect them." And a small caption reads,
The end.
So, the debut of the Earth 1, Sportsmaster and Huntress, and a long-awaited sequel to Brave and Bold 62. Don't say we don't pay attention, listeners.
Yes, how exciting. That was great fun. Yeah, terrific fun. Again, Sportsmaster and Huntress, how have they been off the radar all this time? How have they not encountered any other heroes before now, the Earth 1 versions? It's bizarre. Who knows?
That's a really good point. That is a really good point, because Robin and Batgirl do seem a little bit familiar with them.
Yeah, Mm-hmm.
But it's weird, given the emphasis where we see the two Earths overlapping and stuff, that's the sole reason we're doing this story, actually, probably because of that panel. You wonder if maybe they've heard about them from one of the Earth 2 heroes or something, but then that's probably very unlikely.
May have done. Well, maybe Robin heard from the other Robin that time they met up. Yeah, could be.
Maybe if they had time while they were getting changed and running about Slaughter Swamp. Long time ago, that was ages ago now, GLA 91, 92, something like that.
Yep.
I liked the pacing of it. The 70s cliche of aeroplanes being hijacked was very welcome.
Yes. That was hilarious. I also want to know how Robin managed to parachute out of this passenger jet.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Surely it would decompress the entire cabin when he did that. Unless they were flying incredibly low and said, sorry, everyone, all you fare-paying passengers, we've just been hijacked. Robin saved us. But, to pay him back, we need to fly really low, open up the door. Everyone, fasten your seatbelts in case you get sucked out of the plane.
Yeah, put your books away.
It's a bit cheeky, I'll be honest.
That's the thing. We should have seen the wig and the jacket drifting down behind them as they'd also been sucked out by the air pressure.
Oh, that would have been chef's kiss.
I really liked that whole thing of Robin going onto the plane in disguise.
Yeah.
And the way it was told, because you weren't sure quite what was going on. The first time I read it, which was last night, preparation, I kind of thought, it's Robin in disguise as the blonde guy. Is he walking up to the the cockpit to warn the pilot about what's going on? No, he was a hijacker and Robin was the guy in the purple. It was interesting.
Yeah, the hijackers' glasses are hilarious because, when you look at them, they do have kind of like the bullet barrels on the end.
Yeah.
They must weigh a ton, these glasses.
Yeah, they must be really uncomfortable.
Yeah, but because it is a functioning gun, allegedly.
Yeah, it's such a great idea. Need a gun, but you're short-sighted. Have trouble reading small print, but want to blow someone away. This is really disrespectful and inappropriate. But you can imagine the marketing.
Yeah, I want to know who makes these things in Earth 1. I mean, obviously, we've got the Sportsmaster with all his gadgets as well, because, we know the Earth 2 version does have a flying putting green.
He does.
Yes.
I know who supplied that gun to the hijacker.
Who supplied the gun to the hijacker?
What said about the skies being a funny colour? It was the Monitor.
It was the Monitor. Of course it was the Monitor. Who's the Monitor? Well,
Stay tuned.
stay tuned, and in about 10 years' time we'll tell you.
No, the hijack sequence was a lot of fun.
But yeah, so instead of the flying putting green that the Earth 2 version had, we've got this strange kind of like upside down teacup, as you said. But it's kind of like Cronus' sundial platform that he like rocks about on, his flying platform. It reminded me a bit of that.
Right.
It's actually it's like a fairground ride teacup that they seem to have an anti-gravity device on.
I know what you mean. I did enjoy the sort of slight sense that Sportsmaster and Huntress's marriage's best days were behind them. That was quite amusing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
Divorce American style and all that. And it's baffling how Sportsmaster's gear changes between panels when Batgirl wakes up. That's very funny.
Yeah, and I still don't really know what the biker gear that he seems to have at the end and on the cover represents, because it does look like a biker's crash helmet.
Speedway, motocross, something like that, I suppose.
Could be. I love when Robin actually takes him out, you see he's actually doing an uppercut to his chin, because that's the bit of his face that isn't actually covered.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was good. I like that.
I'm also intrigued as so much of the adventure takes place around this one temple, this one pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
So whereabouts is the arena located? How far away is that?
Yeah, good point.
Where did the horses come from? Where did the chariots come from? Did the Aztecs have such chariots? I'm not sure that they did. Interesting. So who was it wrote it? It was Magan. Yeah, well, you can let him off because he's a friend.
Yes, our friend of the podcast, Mr. Magan. I did like the bank robbery at the People's Bank, and every time I saw People's Bank written, I just kept on thinking People's Bank of Judea.
Fair enough.
I was having a Life of Brian flashback, and I wonder if there's also a Judean People's Bank as well. Perhaps the company split at one point.
Yeah, I mean, that was some fun stuff at the start. I mean, it seems like Robin gets a little bit more to do in this. What we see with Batgirl is just in flashback. And she obviously saves them with the inflatable and stuff later on. Mm-hmm. But Robin gets a bit more agency because we see him getting to jump through skylights and slide around and stop airplanes being hijacked. Mm-hmm. I would maybe have liked a little bit more of maybe the resolution just being Batgirl solo, but again, it's supposed to be a team effort.
Yeah, I thought the teamwork was quite good at the end.
We think this is the first time Batgirl has appeared on the podcast.
Yeah, I think it might well be. I can't think of any other times. So, David.
Yes.
When did you first encounter Batgirl?
Oh, wow. Probably on the 70s Batman cartoon, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was in that. I mean, I've said this before, that I'm not the biggest Batman sort of fan or collector, but the Batman that I have the most fondness for is the Batman from the New Adventures of Batman. It was on BBC One before Doctor Who for a short while in the mid-70s. Batmite and Robin and all that sort of stuff, because I had a Batmobile and a Batboat, little toy, when I was really young. I'm sure she was in that. I guess it must have been in that. I think as far as seeing her in comics, I've got something in my head is just telling me it was maybe on a house ad for Batman Family or something back in the day.
Okay.
I definitely knew who she was by the time I got Killing Joke for Christmas, whatever year that came out.
Sure.
Okay.
88.
But I don't think I've read a lot of stuff with her in it, to be honest. Mm-hmm. What about you? When did you first encounter Batgirl?
I'm not sure if it was maybe repeats of the Batman TV series or it might have been a cartoon. I certainly was aware of the character.
Yeah.
I think the first story that really featured her that I read was the DC Comics Presents Team Up issue, which was great. I really enjoyed that.
Of course.
That was a fairly early-ish one, I believe.
Yeah, I know the one you mean, yeah.
And there was a lot of house adverts for that as well, I think, at the time, if I remember rightly. So I was aware of the character, and I think I might have seen her on television, but I think that was the first proper story that I read of hers.
That's
apart
fair.
From that, I can't really remember. So,
Because, we've talked in the past, the majority of my comic collection from like the 70s and 80s is Marvel. Mm-hmm. My DC collection of the early 80s is very limited compared to yours, because I didn't read Titans or Outsiders or Legion at the time, so I haven't read a lot of that stuff. A lot more Marvel stuff in that period. So Batgirl's not been particularly high on my agenda, as it were.
Sure.
I've always liked the idea of Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon being together,
Yeah, but I found it really interesting, the start bit where Dick's saying to Bruce, she's about 7 years older than me, and he's like, "Oh, come on, Dick. Older women, eh?
Yes.
He's like that. It was like, what?
Yeah, Bruce seems to be up for it, doesn't he? He doesn't seem to have a problem.
He's like, when I was a boy, I liked older women. I'm like, no, Bruce, when you were a boy, you were focused on training to become the ultimate crime fighter.
Yes.
And You weren't thinking about the ladies.
Yeah, I mean, thinking back to that conversation, Dick does seem to be a little bit embarrassed, so I think Bruce has touched the nerve.
Mhm.
Man, that caption again. Dick Grayson is the extraordinary person with the agility and speed of a boy and the length and strength and cleverness of a man. That's outrageous. It's not quite the same as, like, you know, Fastest Man Alive or Emerald Gladiator, is it?
So do you think Dick as a boy was bitten by a radioactive man, or do you think Dick as a man was bitten by a radioactive boy?
I think it was the first suggestion there. Yeah. That must have been what it was. It's Radioactive Man, that's a character though, isn't it?
Oh yes, unless it's Simpsons.
Oh yeah, it's the Homer Simpson superhero.
Yes. It's the goggles, they do nothing. Yeah.
God, I am foggy still today, listeners. We're still fighting the lurgy over here. If you want an update, I woke up at like 5 o'clock on Tuesday morning as we record with razor blades in my throat, but last night I slept better than I've done in weeks. So fingers crossed,
Yes.
touch wood, we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely got the sense that Robin and Batgirl were a bit sharper and a bit more on it than Huntress and Sportsmaster, because they do take them out quite easily.
Yes, very true. Speaking of Huntress, obviously one of our main reasons for doing the podcast is to explore the legacy of Golden Age characters, and of course the Huntress and Sportsmaster are Golden Age characters. Now, if you take the Huntress herself, there was the Golden Age version.
Yes.
There was the Huntress that appeared in that issue of Aquaman that we covered.
Yes.
Featuring Ogre. And then there is this Earth 1 version of the Golden Age Huntress. So this is Huntress 3, if you're doing numbering.
Yeah.
Will there be a fourth Huntress? Will there?
Will there be a fourth? Will there be a fifth? Will there be a sixth?
Yeah.
Obviously, the arrival of another Huntress isn't too far away in the pages of All-Star Comics, etc.
Mm.
And we do have an episode planned before she arrives where we look at some other Huntresses. So yes.
Yes, there have been others.
Listeners, be ready to update your Huntress flowchart.
Yes. At the moment, this is the third Huntress we've talked about on the podcast.
Yes, the third Huntress that we've encountered. Yes.
Yes.
So far.
There may be other retroactive ones
Yes.
slotted in.
Stay tuned.
Mm.
So, shall we go to the letters?
I would be delighted if we went to the letters. Jump forward 2 issues to issue 9, and Batmail Family.
Yeah.
And the first letter says, Dear Julie and Bob, Batman Family 7's 13 points to a dead end was marvellous. Elliot Magan took a whole batch of neat little storytelling devices we fans go nuts over, threw them together and came out with one of the smoothest stories I've ever read. What can I possibly compare it to? Look, we open with Bruce Wayne, a clever way of using a cameo guest star to explain the setting via the phone call to Dick. That, in itself, is effective. Then cut to Dick himself, who proceeds to again shift the action by having a mental workout as he pieces together what must have happened to Batgirl. Beautiful! Then switch to plot action until the villain and villainess are introduced in a flashback and, well, heck, it's more fun reading the story than reading my analysis. I was very much in favour of your handling of the Huntress and Sportsmaster. As Super Crooks on Earth 2, they're great, but as Bush League Earth 1 counterparts who are finally making it big, they were much more entertaining. And I really don't know what I can say about Batgirl and Robin themselves. I generally find their solo stories pretty tepid stuff, but together, magic sparks between them. The relationship has depth and wit that I never thought I'd see in a comic book. They are the most honest characters I can think of, and certainly the most likeable. They're clearly a business team, the friendly rivals vying for top billing in the headlines, toying with slyly spoken insults and rib-poking. I can't think of any team in any film, book or play that quite matches the relationship they have. A romance between them? Come on. Robin only wants to see if he can get Batgirl to melt in his arms, and she obviously thinks his macho act is the biggest joke of all. A camaraderie, an understood respect for one another. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. There's the real Batgirl-Robin relationship. In time they may develop a love, but it'll be a bond of friendship, a la Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. But beyond that, nah. Art-wise, Kurt Swan is the best of the Robin Batgirl pencilers, and Vince Coletta does some very nice inks. Swan really awes me. After years of drawing Superman, he's still great at making relatively normal people doing relatively normal things digestible. And by the way, I am just crazy about the new Batgirl and Robin logos. Who designed them? Finally, I usually try to keep my letters uniform, part of my secret desire to become Guy Lillian, but I just have to throw this in. I'd really like to see Batwoman revived. So says Bob Rohde, Oak Brook, Illinois.
Editorial response is, the relationship between our two stars is a popular topic among our readers, so you can look forward to further developments in upcoming issues, and more comments in following letters. As for the new logos, the Robin one was submitted by longtime fan Anthony Kowalik. It was then formalised by DC production person John Workman, who also designed the complimentary Batgirl logo. Finally, for a word about your last request, if it's Batwoman you want, it's Batwoman you get. But more on that later. Yes, we can say that Batwoman and Batgirl, actually, now that I think about it, will both appear on the podcast together before too long. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The Batgirl and Robin relationship is interesting. I lost count. Did they not get married at one point in sort of the modern continuity?
I don't know if they get married. I can't remember that story. Certainly they were together.
I can't remember. But I do remember, I remember a really good, I think it was a Nightwing annual, it had a sort of flashback sort of thing. It was like, we all know that he went with Starfire from the Titans for a long time, but, no, it should be. It's all about Dick and Babs. Anyway, the next letter, from an old foe, an old friend, reads, Dear Editor, it's about time Batgirl and Robin had some costume villains to chase. I just wish they'd been chasing them in a better story than 13 points to a dead end.
Gasp.
The Huntress and Sportsmaster make ideal foes for our Dynamite duo. If I didn't know better, I'd say they'd been tailored to fit. But their outlandish schemes and far-fetched reasons for involving Batgirl and Robin in their quest for a mere ruby put some huge holes in the credibility of Batman Family number 7. Surely one duel could not be worth the time, trouble and risks that Mr. and Mrs. Menace took to bring our heroes thousands of miles from home. This is a fair point. And while the Huntress's gimmicks worked well in this story, trapping, tracking and ensnaring, Sportsmaster's tricks seemed extravagant at best, added only to make the adventure more flamboyant and allowing Robin and Batgirl the opportunity to show off their athletic skills. Characterisation, on the other hand, was superlative. Batgirl's harmless digs at Robin, calling him boy and speaking of his delicate little ears, were quite in character. Something of a rivalry seems to be developing between the two. The Teen Wonder likes to emphasise that his seniority in the crime-fighting trade makes him the leader, whereas our heroine constantly implies that her age is the deciding factor. And that's from regular letter hack back in the day, Scott Gibson, Evergreen, Colorado. Yeah, it's fair, actually. I mean, 7 years is quite a gap.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a young person. I mean, listeners, Peter's 4 and a bit months older than me, and he still calls me youngster.
I do, yeah.
I've got a few other issues of Batman Family. I'm going to go and read them. I want to see some development in Dick and Babs. I need the Ballad of Dick and Babs to be the name of a trade paperback collection if it's not been released already.
Yes.
There's no editorial response to Scott, so Peter will bring us the next one.
Dear Julie and Bob, it's refreshing to see a team of heroes that isn't a playboy and his ward or the like. The Dynamite duo only get together when they happen to be in the same place at the same time. However, the way your writers have been developing it, their relationship may soon be less platonic than expected. Batgirl and Robin appear to get along well, something necessary for a successful team. I think the biggest factor is the fact that they know each other's identities. Now, when they get into action, they don't have to worry about dropping a clue that the other might pick up. This makes for a more relaxed atmosphere and a great understanding of each other. 13 points to a dead end is the best Batgirl-Robin tale to date. The cameos by Bruce Wayne were nice, as was the revelation that Earth-1 has a Huntress and Sportsmaster. But my favourite part of the story was how Batgirl and Robin were each willing to sacrifice him and herself for the other. This is loyalty of the highest sense. That's from Mike White, Mackinac, also Illinois. There we go.
Yeah. It's one thing, actually, thinking back to the story, they really could have made a bit more of the conflict between, I was expecting, I think, actually, a bit more conflict of, no, you can't do this because you'll die, and I'm not going to let you do this.
Yeah.
A bit like, Hawkeye and Black Widow in Endgame.
Sure, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Perhaps where they got the idea for that from this issue of Batman Family.
Yeah. They could have got a bit more conflict out of that, and maybe we could have had a little bit less of Robin playing hijackers and jumping through, skylights. It's interesting. I think Elliot maybe missed a trick there. Anyway, the next letter reads, Dear Editor, Batman Family began as an uncertain venture, rather weak despite its intriguing premise. The question was, could Batgirl and Robin make it as a team? Not only a good team, but a profitable one. The issues came and went, and the questions were answered. The Dynamite duo clicked, and it was profitable, and number 7 was an example. The running implications of a, shall we say, a May to June romance, they're just not old enough to qualify for May to December romance, between Babs and Dick is outrageous, but in a sense it's quite workable. We should bear this in mind, actually, as well, when we get to certain stories that are run as backup strips in Wonder Woman in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Anyway, there is no bond between Batgirl and Robin in their civilian identities. One is a respected congresswoman, the other's a college freshman. Babs has her work, and when she has time, Jason Bard or her choice of other congresspeople. Dick has his collegiate study, and when he has the time, Laurie What's-Her-Name. But when they're in their costumed identities, they click, despite Batgirl's cracks about Robin's youth. Interesting phenomenon, wouldn't you say? But it works, as demonstrated in Batman Family 7. The villainous couple were a pair of schnooks, or so it seemed. The Huntress and Sportsmaster of Earth 2 would be deeply ashamed of their counterparts, but these two make a perfect pair of villains to be pitted against our pair of second-rate heroes. Harsh. However, I think the time has come for Batgirl and Robin to meet bigger villains rather than a set of quarrelling spouses, because villains like this Mr. and Mrs. Menace seem so easily defeated. They are morons, and the Dynamite duo deserve better. And that very pointy letter comes from Elizabeth Smith, Tacoma, Washington.
Editorial response, bigger villains? How about the Joker, who is scheduled to make the scene against our popular pair 2 issues from now?
Gosh.
So says Bob Prozakis. So the last letter we're covering says, Dear Editor, Batgirl and Robin team-ups are fun. 13 points to a dead end was no exception. The Huntress and Sportsmaster should appear more often, and Bruce Wayne's cameo role was appreciated. I was delightfully surprised with Robin's growing infatuation with Batgirl. No doubt the result of that much talk about Kiss a few issues ago. I was even more surprised that Robin didn't tell Batman, his old pal, mentor, guardian, and partner, that he knows who Batgirl really is. I'm sure Batman would have told Robin. I can only assume that if Robin continues to remain silent about this momentous secrets, he has the hots for her a lot worse than I thought. And that's from Dale Sindali, White Plains, New York.
White Plains, of course, who had a massive hit in the early 70s with My Baby Loves Love. And don't get me started on that, because I'll just talk about Tony Burrows. The next 2 letters are both about the Robin and Batgirl relationship and what people think about it, so they're not really too relevant to the story. Yes, I think we will return to the pages of Batman Family before too long.
We certainly shall. And it's worth saying that at the bottom of this letter column, there is a big advert that says, Hated by the underworld, hunted by the police. Don't miss the Freedom Fighters in their next Powerhouse issue. And we won't miss the Freedom Fighters in our next Powerhouse episode, because we'll be covering more of their exploits next week.
Indeed, it's been a minute since we did the Freedom Fighters. Had we look back, and I think it was the tail end of the summer. So listeners, if you feel like it, go back and re-listen to our episodes covering issues 1, 2 and 3 just to get the gist of the status quo.
So you've heard what we thought about this issue. You've heard what the readers at the time thought about this issue. Why don't you tell us what you thought about this issue? You can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media, because we're putting up some lovely bonus material for this, and indeed every episode. On Facebook, Instagram and Blue Sky, we're at the Earth 2 Podcast, and on Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it is, of course, the number 2 for all of our socials.
If you're feeling generous, listeners, please consider going to wherever it is you receive your podcast and giving us a positive review, or perhaps sharing one of our social media posts, or perhaps going to our coffee page and buying Peter the price of his beverage as he hunkers down to edit the next few episodes, which are going to be very, very involved indeed. Exciting. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I definitely want to go and read some more Robin and Batgirl stories. I think this has worked. I think this has worked its magic. I'm intrigued.
Excellent.
On that bombshell.
I've been Peter.
And I've been David. We'll see you again soon on
The Earth 2 Podcast.
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
It looks like a Ruby Kamei. There are museums that would pay a fortune for one of those things.
Ruby Kamei supported Montrose Avenue, I believe, at King Tut's.
He's not wrong, listeners.